Hello, welcome to the third episode of Conversations with the Reflection. Today, as you can see if you clicked on this podcast, I am going to be talking about a topic that I talk about a lot, but from another perspective. I feel that normally I talk about self-love, but I have rarely talked about this other side that is the fashion of self-love, which I feel has lately become like a trend, a tendency to hear self-love everywhere, and sometimes this is my personal opinion. Sometimes I feel that when we hear something so many times it loses the strength that it had at the beginning. So I want to talk a little about this topic today. I have a lot of notes here and they are watching me from YouTube. They are seeing me that I am very comfortable. A Judy below, I have Pinama pants. I have a cold coffee here. Fashion is so relaxed, because you already know that the vibe here is that I like to talk as if I were friends, busties. So I would love to see your opinion on self-love being such a trend nowadays. I think we have to talk about this because it has consequences. Like anything in life, it has consequences that this becomes a fashion, so much good, as well as bad. Many times I talk about the good. Today I want to focus a little on certain dangers that this term self-love has to be so popularized. Here is the thing. I feel that I have like 1,000 ideas on this topic, on what I want to address, and what I want to do today with you is organize my ideas, because they are fluttering a little like papers, scattered around, the truth of my mind. This is a somewhat controversial topic, and I feel that when something becomes fashionable, it is like when a piece of clothing becomes fashionable. Fashion, as if a very luxurious and very important brand releases a portfolio, a bag, and this bag catches it, becomes super fashionable, spread, now everyone wants it, and just like that luxury bag catches it, self-love catches it, basically in terms of mentioning it catches it, it did well, it went to the stardom of the term as a bag, and what happens? That imitations start to come out, or things start to come out that are similar but not the quiet. It seems that yes, but no. There are even things that start to appear out there, that seem identical, that at first glance seem identical, but when you put on your clothes, they tear, or when you put on your bag, when you first put it on, everything that was in it fell out. I don't know if I'm making myself understood, but it's something that seems a lot at first glance, and look, this is self-love, and in what you put it on or in what you start trying to do, you realize that like no, it seemed but it wasn't, like with anything, when we start to come out, things that are not the same, but that are a little similar. There are two main things, two of these similar but not the quiet, almost but no, that out there that I heard a lot of understanding, with respect to self-love. Obviously, my concern here is not that Valeria has the absolute truth in her hands and everything that Valeria says that is self-love, no, nothing to do with it, but that there is a danger. It is that the message can be distorted, like when a gossip is passed from mouth to mouth. Every time it passes to another new mouth, more things are found, removing more things, and the message is understood less and less. And what I want to say here is not that it is what is from my mouth, it is what it really is, but that sometimes we have to reflect a little on what our values are, what our ideals are, and from there, realize if everything they are really selling us is self-love or what is happening other things. I'm obviously still learning, and of course I make mistakes many times. The first topic, or my first point that I wanted to address that I feel is one of the parallels with self-love, is the topic of impossible standards. And one of the impossible standards that I have seen the most lately is the concept of being. This is in English. Forgive me for seeing the truth that I heard it. It originates in English, so it is going to do it like this. This impossible standard that I have heard a lot lately is called being that girl, that girl. Basically it literally translates to that girl, and if you know me and follow me on YouTube, you will know that I made a video a little related to this trend. If you saw the video, you will realize that I am not 100% in agreement that this girl is a girl that is in fashion. But for those who have not heard, nor seen any of this on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, which is where I have seen the most people talk about that girl, I am going to explain a little what I understand by this trend of being that girl. I noticed it here and I want to read it because it is not going to distort things too much. But according to this fashion, being that girl is being that person who wakes up super early. I have seen this in almost all of that girl's videos. She wakes up super early, she has a lot of rituals, yes. Meditation, yes. Water with lemon, yes. Masks, yes. Exercise, yes. Yoga, journaling, all this, before 10 in the morning. Since my head makes me a little poof, it becomes an emoy that comes out exploding like cases, and I feel a little myself. When I saw this trend and what is happening, obviously when I saw this trend, the videos look super hysteric, super beautiful, and it will have like a motivation. At first glance I get a motivation, and rather, I agreed with this trend. It was like, wow, what a good fashion, how good that meditation is becoming fashionable, the journal of imposing a mask, all these things, by themselves are incredible. These habits, by themselves, are 100% things that I recommend, and not only that I recommend but that psychologists recommend, that health professionals recommend. So clearly, the habits are fine, on their own. I want you to pass, after a while going down and down, watching videos of that girl, I began to realize that there were several things that didn't fit. Meditating is incredible, we know it, exercise helped a lot, physically, but the problem here is that Dark Girl begins to build an ideal. Not only is it being encouraged that these habits be done, it is being encouraged that these habits be done to achieve something, to achieve Dark Girl. And Dark Girl then no longer becomes a mentality, or it no longer becomes a way of motivating people to achieve a habit, but without shit on the papers. And instead of me wanting to achieve that habit or achieve feeling good, I want to make those habits to achieve Dark Girl, and having that role is an ideal. And the problem with ideals is that many ideals develop standards or stereotypes. And a phrase that I once heard that I love said that the problem with stereotypes is not that they are wrong, the problem with stereotypes is that they are incomplete. I dehumanize the person a little, that we want to fit into a mold, that we want to be this Dark Girl like she wants us to shrink, she wants us to be small so that we fit in and be the same thing to all of us, that we wake up at 5 in the morning, that we do my activity is that we meditate, that I don't know what, I don't know how much, and we are all different people with different schedules, and different ways of living, which obviously cannot be made smaller or cut in the corners so that they fit into the same Dark Girl mold. They become generic steps. So when I saw a lot of videos, I'm not saying this like, oh, it's not that I heard about that trend one day and I didn't like it anymore, and I'm not saying it to attack the people who support it. I'm saying this so that we understand that sometimes the problem with fashions is that they create things in which they take away a little bit of our humanity, in which they take away a little bit of our okay, it's that I am this way, but I have to fit in and be in this other way, to make this Dark Girl, to do what is fashionable. I note here that what this fashion trend sometimes omits is that we are all very different, and there are people who work 8, so you can't wake up at 6 in the morning to have an iced coffee, make a select breakfast and meditate and exercise and such because you work 8, so the Dark Girl trend doesn't apply to you as much, or even myself. No matter how many videos of routines I make, I have told you that not all my days look like this. Not all my routines look like that. There are days when I wake up and I don't want to prepare a breakfast. I mean, a user to the Amako, this is going to be Netflix and there is nothing wrong with it, but it also doesn't fit into what this Dark Girl trend initially says it should be. Or let's suppose a mother who doesn't have much time before taking her children to school to have a select breakfast and journaling and put on a mask, take a bath, bubbles and putting salts on the body in the Dark Girl trend doesn't fit that much with that mother either. So the issue here is the problem with Dark Girl that I see mainly with these types of stereotypes and impossible standards that sometimes these fashions related to self-love bring us, but I don't think that is true self-love. The problem is that they impose something on us that I don't like at all, which is whites and blacks, they fall extreme, this or that, and you already know that I'm not a fan of neither of the two, neither the white nor the black, unless it is about clothes, with things like that. But in the ideas and the beliefs of life, I am much more a fan of the grays, and what I wanted to explain here is not like there is demonizing Dark Girl, no, it is to explain that Dark Girl is simply today's fashion. Within a year we may have another fashion, but that they continue in the same thing, that they continue in the same line of thought, and it is to impose impossible standards on us. That is, you have to do this, you have to do something else, you have to do it, I don't know what it is. But I am a human being, sometimes I can't do all those things. You know that I am the first to tell you that it is good to meditate, that it is good to exercise, that it is good to have a hot tea, but I know that deep down those things are not the only thing that constitutes self-love, and no matter how good the habits that this trend recommends are, self-love lies in something much deeper than doing your skincare and putting on one more veneer, but I don't want to go into this so much because I'm going to say it later after explaining the second point or the second trend that wants to appear in self-love, but it's not quiet, it's not, and this makes me a little more afraid of speaking the truth. I'm a little afraid of talking about this topic for myself, or that someone would be offended, because I know that it's talked about a lot and it makes me feel like saying that I don't agree, but well, these are my opinions and opinions are respected, you know that. Everything is always about respect. But here's a little bit of my perspective. The second point I am going to explain through a fashion that I have heard a lot in Dark Girl does not disturb me as much compared to this one. If my ears are ringing and the emoji that her head is exploding triples, it is the fashion of the high-value woman, in quotes. No, high-value woman, I am making quotes with medios, if you are not watching me on YouTube, but I don't know if I have ever heard this concept of a high-value woman, but since the day I heard him super I was somewhat wrong with that term because the simple term is making a strange noise, and what I want to explain to those who, with the high-value woman thing, is that I feel that sometimes there has been an even greater pressure on women, because we know that we already had a lot of pressure from society for years, but with this fashion even more pressure is being put on women, which is an unnecessary pressure. But to begin with, I want to explain, as she explains with Dark Girl, what it means to be a high-value woman according to people and according to what I have heard. because as I tell you, this is a reflection on what things are happening out there on social networks, what things are fashionable, and I have heard this a lot. Unfortunately, I have heard it a lot, and if I have never heard it or if it is not very clear, I wanted to tell you what I have understood. To begin with, I have something that I no longer like. What is the title? That is, it is a simple fact of listening to the words, woman of high value, this combination of words, without you explaining to me what it means. Without context, it already seems like a somewhat terrible combination of words to me, but why does it resonate with me? The term high value woman resonates with me a lot for several reasons, but the first is that to say that there is something high, there must be something low. It is like to say that there is something cold, there must be something hot, or to say that there is something dark, you have to say that there is something luminous. These are words high low, they are words that always imply an opposite. It is not like saying flower. Well, a flower. These types of adjectives qualify and say these high lows, so that's it. The simple fact that you say that there is a woman of high value makes me understand that there is some woman of low value, without me getting so philosophical, explaining terms and explaining words. By words, I say this because right off the bat, the fact of hearing the phrase is that I am a woman of high value, videos on how to be a woman of high value, it makes me understand that there are women of less value. That is the first thing that makes me understand this term, and it is the first reason why, since I heard it, it made a lot of noise, and not in the positive way. I found many values of mine to think that there is a woman of less value. I hear two main explanations about what it means to be a woman of high value. Many people listen, and I feel that the opinions are divided into two. The first is the I have heard the most in my mind because it seems to me that it is the worst, but the first says that being a woman of high value is a woman who dresses in a certain way, who speaks elegantly or without rudeness. I have even heard that a woman of high value cannot accept a date to go to the park with a man because that is not her level, and I have a very big problem with this. So women who do not dress in that way that the videos say, have less value, or if a woman says rude things or talks about a less elegant way, she has less value. She has less value as a woman or as a person. I heard other explanations, which say that it does not refer to being superior to other women. That is, the term high value woman does not refer to being superior to someone else, but rather it means that I have more value than yesterday. I heard this in some videos that said, that is, a high value woman is a woman who, like me now, works on myself, and like now I work to be my best version, or I am more successful, etc. As a woman I have more value than 2 years ago. Years, I heard this. I am not making this up, I heard this. There is no way for me that this term is not terrible. Here are my reasons. The first thing that bothers me, and if you are on YouTube you know that I am reading things that I write down, so that I don't get away with the idea and I don't start talking much more about the branches of what I already start talking about. But the first thing that bothers me is that in many cases, but in many, I have heard that the concept of a high value woman is equal to or goes hand in hand with self-love. It is shared as if it were an idea of self-love, and self-love is not this. It has nothing to do with it. Self-love has nothing to do with these things. But more reflections on this topic in the conclusions. This was written to him in May school, so you can imagine that when I wrote to him yesterday he was screaming inside. But the thing is that self-love has never, ever tried to think that how you now works in you, that how you now work in you. I don't know that you are a better person or you are more successful. How you now work in you, then now you are worth more. Self-love has never been about that. It has not been about thinking that since I now have more money or I have more stability, excited, I have more of this, I have more of the other, like me now. I don't know. I am in a slightly better position than a few years ago, and so I now have more value compared to a few years ago. No, self-love recognizes that even in your worst moments, that even in your lowest and darkest moments, you are worth it. Then even when you had bad habits, or when you have relapses, or when you take a small step back, you are worth, and you are not worth more or less than anyone else, neither more nor less than what you were worth yesterday. The value of a person, their dignity, is something that no one can ever take away from them, and they do not increase or decrease. It is worth what you are worth only because you exist and because you are a human being. This is your Damien in anthropology. In one of my anthropology classes at the university, we study how the value that ultimately refers to human dignity is something between dryness of the person, and it cannot be removed, it cannot be reduced, and it cannot be passed on from one person to another because you are worth it, and that's it. Because as a human being, I don't care if you have more or if you don't have less money, or if you are more successful or if you were less successful, or you dress with more clothes or you dress with less clothes. It doesn't matter, because your worth as a person doesn't decrease according to that type of things. Here we go with my second problem. It is that it is thought that one woman is worth more than another. I don't care if you dress with a held in a pandalita, or if you dress in a lot of layers of clothing. I don't care if you went out to a party and kissed with 5 or with none. No woman is worth more than another. And I wrote it down literally. What is that? What is that? It's like literal, C-U-E-J-E-C-O. What is it? no woman is worth more than another, no woman is of more value than another, because no person is worth more than another. In the sense of true value and human dignity, we are no longer going to start talking about money, or start talking about companies. No, it is not human value, as a person your dignity. It does not matter to me how you dress. I do not care if you have good habits or bad habits. That is not going to change that I think that I have more value than you, nor that I think that that woman is of more value than the other, because I am against thinking that human value is determined by things as simple as the clothes you wear or whether or not you are serious. And the biggest problem with this fashion of high-value women is that it puts more pressure on women. This is what bothers me the most and contributes to this more pressure on women. You have to do a series of things, dress in a certain way or be more successful, have more habits so that you are now a woman of high value, because if it's not that lot of other things, you didn't earn the position of a woman of high value. And I'm tired. No, if you, because I know that the majority of the people who listen to me are women, but I'm tired of women themselves putting so much pressure on each other, because you know how much better the world would be without women supporting each other. What the world would be like if we saw and recognized the value that the person has in the domain, and recognized how beautiful it is that this person exists, or that this person has value and capability. We do not agree in capability, we do not have the same perspectives, but we respect each other, and without a doubt as women we are not going to contribute to putting even more pressure on ourselves, because we already know how difficult it is sometimes to navigate life, so that apart from putting pressure on each other, your value as people does not depend on how good or how successful you are. When we go to the intrinsic nature of true value, it has nothing to do with success or with money or with appearances. It may be that today it has already grown. It is valid. It is the idea that we are growing. It may be that today it is more successful, and how incredible we are going to celebrate. It may be that today you have massive relationships, and obviously all of those are things that I support on their own straight line, and because the most important thing is that if I think that since I am now more successful I have mass relationships, or I have this and I have that other, if I think that because of all those types of things I now have more courage than yesterday, what happens when one of those things goes away? Because sometimes people go back, because sometimes the roller coaster goes down. Sometimes I built very good relationships, but suddenly things happened and I wanted things, and those people left my life and I have to start again. So what happens now is I go back and I have less courage. The problem is that I don't know simplify something that is complex or simplify something that is not so simple. Self-love is a complex process of the person, and it cannot be simplified to that if you do this is ready, you already loved yourself. There is your list. I did not empty anything else, because no matter how many videos of steps that I make, basic self-love steps of self-love, I always tell them, I think that in all the videos I try to tell them, it is not a linear process, and it is not the same for everyone. It is not the same thing for everyone, and this is something important to highlight. This was my two main ones that I wanted to analyze today. Obviously I was not going to stop there. I want to tell you a little about what I truly think is self-love, because you are going to tell me it would be worth it, but if it is not this and it is not the other thing that it is, and as I tell you I do not have the truth in my hands. I remember that I spoke with my psychologist a little about this topic, telling him that I wanted to talk about it, and he told me, now if you do it from your experience it is valid. So here is a little of what is in my heart and what I feel that I have first learned the basics of self love. According to what I have learned is acceptance, because self-love is not so different from how we feel love for someone else. It is different because it is with ourselves. But if you stop to think, when you love someone, the first step to love someone is to accept them for the person they are, accept them with a lot of good things, and accept that they are also a human being and they have good things, because no one is perfect. You cannot love someone, you cannot love something not. Even if you do not accept how they are, if you do not accept their insecurities, if you do not accept that they are not going to be perfect, they are going to make a mistake, and if you do not accept, above all, the person you love has an indisputable value. You don't like him, you like him. Someone has an indisputable value. From their love comes out, not love comes out from an acceptance of, look, I accept you as a person. And sometimes one takes what to accept and what not to accept, obviously. Because one has standards, because one knows one deserves you, because the people in your life, well, say either this friend is lame or this partner is lame with you. Know, and that is the first thing you have to recognize, that you have to either live at war with yourself or try to live in peace, because you are the longest relationship you are going to have in your life, and because you are with you for life whether you like it or not. Then it starts from the acceptance of accepting that first of all, and once you accept that, of accepting that you are not perfect, that you have insecurities, that it is okay to have them, that maybe there are some that are going to leave and they are going to. The next thing about self-love is that it's about doing things for yourself first of all. There was a phrase that I had just before I started being content and making videos and talking so much about self-love. It can wait, and it is not about being selfish and not being able to help someone else, it is about filling up. You always had a place first to have to give to someone else if someone else needs it. It is about doing things for you, healing for you, working for your goals without looking so hard at each other, without thinking that if the woman in the corner is being more or less than you, because self-love is about you, your relationship with yourself, and when you have a relationship with someone, the relationship is between the person to and the person to me. It does not come into play. All the other individuals on the planet, not the relationship is between A and C, and in this case there is C is your relationship with yourself, and it has to do with you and things do for you. The next thing about what I think is self-love is that self-love also consists of learning to keep your promises to yourself. What does this mean? It is explained in some video, but in case this is the first time that you are listening to me, or maybe you have not seen my videos, I told you about one time about a video where someone explained that if, for example, you say to a friend, look, let's meet tomorrow at 5 in the afternoon to have a coffee, and your friend goes and you have stood her up. You broke a promise to your friend, right? Or if you tell your friend, look, tomorrow we are going to go to the gym at 7 in the morning. We go together and your friend goes and you have stood her up. So you broke a promise to your friend, and normally you would realize that these things are not good. A coffee and you don't go. You recognize that this is not right, but many times we break promises to ourselves in self-love a little bit in that. In learning to keep your promises, in English it is said show up like being there. Show up like if I tell myself I'm going to stop tomorrow at 8 and I'm going to listen to a 5-minute meditation, I do it because I owe it to myself, because just as I keep promises to others, I also deserve to keep my own promises. So, self-love will also learn to keep yours. Promises and learning to be there for you, because keeping promises encourages you to trust yourself and build a trust in which you say I'm going to do this, and you know that if you can do it and you are capable of doing it, and start through small habits like keeping promises, self-love is going to show who you are and being faithful to what you need. What does this mean? At some point I realized that I don't have to mold myself to do what other people think, because it's easy to realize that this person likes that I am a very talkative person and I don't know how to talk. Because when you like yourself, suddenly you don't care so much about giving good to everyone, and everyone doesn't mind connecting with people who are on the same wavelength as you and who appreciate you for who you are. What I truly think is self-love is letting yourself be human, and you say it would be fine, but we are human beings, obviously we have to be human. Humans, in which it is understood that a human being is not perfect. Letting yourself be human means that you know and realize that you do not need to achieve an ideal of perfection, that you cannot be perfect, and make do with the fact that you, no matter how many quintets, you can't be perfect, because perfection in the human being does not exist. The following. Let yourself be human by recognizing and remembering that you are learning, and that eventually how you are learning, and since it is the first time that you live this life and you do not know all of it, recognize that eventually you are going to make mistakes, and the important thing here is not it is justifying each mistake. A mistake is a mistake. A mistake is an accident. It is something that I am wrong. A decision that I may make wrong does not mean that you are going to repeat the same issues that you know are so bad and how to take refuge from it. No, it is not that I did not know that was a mistake. There are things that I did in the past that today may not be in line with the person I am, or there are even people that I let hurt me, that I let come into my life today. I would never allow someone to treat me like that, and I have to forgive myself, because at that time I did not know the things that I know today, and since I did not know the things that I am today because the person I am worth from the past, I have to forgive them for allowing themselves to be treated like that. That is an example. Self-love is also forgiving yourself for your mistakes, for the things that you did wrong, or for the things you didn't take in a line of decisions that favored you or that did you good, etc. Self-love goes a lot hand in hand with self-compassion, that when you make a mistake you don't start insulting yourself and saying what a fool this is, what a bad person, that if there is this, that if there is that other thing, how can it occur to you to see committed? It terrifies me. No, sometimes it has happened to me that I say there, let's see how you can think of doing this, and then I say no, it's fine, because I talk to myself like that. I wouldn't do it like that to my best friend, I wouldn't do it like that to my dad, I wouldn't do it like that to me, my brother, I wouldn't do it like that, because I'm talking to myself like that. It's a bit that is self-compassion, without a doubt. Self-love is working from the inside out. It's worrying a little less about whether or not a man offers you a date or not, and paying a little more attention to how you treat people and how you allow others to treat you, because that depends on how many things are triggered in your life. Self-love is recognizing that you can't control everything, that the only things you can truly control in life is how you are, how you act, how you react to the things that happen to you. Self-love is healing, and I'm leaving like I love this word, heal wounds, heal trauma, heal what hurts us. I want to do I think I've just missed the moment. I have a huge list of episodes that I want to do this Nora had, but now it has hurt her. I want to do an episode about healing, heal and internal heal. The resentment that other people have hurt you, heal the resentment, heal the comparison. Self-love is healing by putting water and cleaning your wounds and leaving that if Katrisa in little by little they go, that self-love is going to put priorities and saying first go first, I work on myself and then they come from other wounds. And as I have told you, it is not selfish. I tell you that when I did not love myself I could not give others what today I can give them. Today I have my heart and mind open in a way in which I did not have it back then. That back then I did not love. Of course I loved myself and I called with all my heart, but sometimes I hurt myself in the process because I was not clear the limits, and that is important. Priority is important. It is important to put yourself first for the limits. I am not saying that a person who is not more in himself cannot love another. Yes, he can love his something. It is the most natural thing in the world, one of the most human things, and it is not that the most human, but if it is true, or I think it is true, that one loves at the level in which it is more cynism. And this does not mean that since you love yourself little more little others know, but sometimes when you love yourself little, let others trample your limits, trample your barriers. What kind of love is a love in which we respect each other and treat each other badly? And since you don't know how to respect my limits, then I respond negatively. And no, instead of setting your limit I respond ugly. I shout at you, I don't know what, because I don't know how to set a limit. I do think that self-love helps us to have healthy relationships and helps us make better people for others. That's why I think that putting yourself as a priority is not selfish. It doesn't mean that I'm going to put my interests above others and that Valeria's interests, they are the interests of the queen, they are not the interests here put on top of everyone. No, self-love is not that. As I have told you, it does not have so much to do with eating on the sides and more with eating inwards, but I think that the most important thing, in addition to all the other things that I said, the most important thing about self-love is to recognize that you are a human being and that this list that I said, or any list that there is about self-love, is unique in detail. It is not a one-size-fits-all. No list is a size-fits-all. No list of this is the only one we are going to use. Some things more than others because your process is unique, because you as a person are unique, and because your story is unrepeatable. It is important to remember that self-love is not a straight line, that sometimes we go up and down, that we suddenly go back a step, but the important thing is that you do not give up on yourself, that you more than anyone else remember that you are your longest relationship. I have a phrase stuck on my wall. I don't know if you can see it, it's just that you can't see it here on YouTube, but I obviously read it, and says something like that. Maybe in the end all we want is someone who makes us realize that it's worth fighting for us. And until recently, that's when I wrote this podcast episode that was at night, but until recently I thought it was nice to wait for someone to come to me that would make me realize that it's worth fighting for me. And I don't mind the idea, obviously, that I want the people who are in my romantic life or family friendship to think that it's worth fighting for me, but I realized that I can also be that someone who makes me realize that I am worth fighting for. I want to leave the episode here. It seems like a good closing. I want to leave the episode here because this is what I had to say. That those things are cool and feel good, and if they contribute to giving yourself a little, to pamper yourself a little, self-love goes much deeper, and that is what I wanted to leave here in this episode. Remember that it is for you, and that you owe it to yourself to have a good relationship with the person with whom you are going to have the longest, most constant, and most consistent relationship in your entire life, which is you. Rating on the podcast platform where I have you listening, it will help me a lot if you leave a review, nice comments, or what you think. Whatever is on your mind. Feedback does not always have to be the most positive, and say there it would be worth it. I love you. Now you cannot always give me constructive feedback, obviously, as I say, out of respect, so if you can help me with that by leaving a review on Spotify, a pop-up here where it is that you listen to me, or if you are here on YouTube. I also always love reading your comments and speaking a rhyme, and as always I wanted to remind you that regardless of whether you have just started on this path of self-love or if you have been in this process for a while, no matter if your life is good or capable, no, it is so good, your truth was value. It never changes because it has always been, you are, and it will be enough, and I hear it or see it defending wherever they see me or hear me very soon in my next episode. Bye.